Hey, welcome to my Warframes Where They Are Now series, a little series I've had brewing in the back of my mind since the early days of Warframe, quote unquote. I'm going to put this little intro at the beginning of every video in this series. If you've heard this once or more, feel free to skip it. This is just my opinion and is not guaranteed to be fact. Remember, with Warframe, everyone plays at least a little different from each other. That's why there's 52 frames as of making this intro, of course. That being said, I do plan on being as objective as I can with this series. But bias will always be a potential problem, and will definitely shine through in certain episodes, if not all. Now, that being said, I hope you enjoy the series. July 14th, 2023. Yeah, I am recording this today before I'm posting it. Busy week, you know how it goes. Today we're talking about Valkyr. I don't know how to feel about Valkyr. I kind of go through phases of using her, and then phases of just completely forgetting she exists. Like, she's not particularly ridiculous, but she's also not bad either. Base stats on a Valkyr Prime are 700 armor, 225 energy, 300 health, 150 shield, and 1.1 sprint speed. If I'm not mistaken, she has the highest armor value in the game at base at level 30. However, way things are looking, that may change to Lavos or Kullervo in the future. Granted, we're going to have to wait 4 years for Kullervo. I think Lavos is next year, though, so sooner than, she may be dethroned sooner than we thought. Her passive is she recovers 50% faster for being knocked down. I'll be honest, I've never noticed this ability in action. Mainly because you already get it pretty quick from being knocked down. Her first ability is Ripline. She, throws a zipline ahead of her, and if it hits an enemy, she yoinks them. If she hits a wall, she yoinks herself. I'll be honest, I don't really get the appeal of this ability. I mean, I have it helmeted off for Mag's Pull because, in my eyes, it just kind of does a better job. Alright, as for the augment swing line, after using Ripline, the next 4 Riplines will have no energy costs while being airborne. And it also gives her 20% parkour velocity. I guess it makes it better? Again, I don't really see the appeal of this ability. Her second ability is Warcry, which gives you and your allies higher attack speed, but it also slows down enemies. This is an ability I often see as just kind of slapped on when it comes to helmet abilities. Granted, I don't run it on a lot of frames, but the ones I run it on, it's quite nice. I have it on my Excalibur Umbra, as previously mentioned in, funny enough, the first episode of this series, because it makes Exalted Blade go crazy, and also makes the enemies pretty much stand still for you. So yeah. As for the augment Eternal War, while Warcry is active, its duration is increased by 2 seconds per each melee kill. Honestly, really awesome augment. I have not found a way to squeeze it onto her build. I also don't currently have it, but I'm honestly not sure what I'd replace for it. But I do want to find a way to get it on there. I also wouldn't mind finding a way to squeeze it onto Umbra, but I run a Chromatic Blade, so bit difficult to do that. Her third ability is Paralysis. She strips her shields to throw them at enemies, and it stuns them for half a second, as well as knocks them back a little bit. I don't really use this ability all that much, mainly because it feels weaker than it should. I typically actually use it for either activating Molt Reconstruct, although I ended up removing that because of how Hysteria works, or when I'm in Deviri, I use it for activating any of the decrees that base their activation off of abilities, because it's really cheap to cast. As for the augment Prolonged Paralysis, affected enemies are pulled towards Valkyr, and the stun duration is increased by 200%. If I'm being honest, I feel like that's just how the ability should work. As for her fourth ability, Hysteria, she activates her claws and becomes invulnerable during Hysteria. It does rip through your energy pretty quick, but are literally unkillable during it, so trade-offs, and pretty damn good ones at that. She has 2 augments for it, Hysterical Assaults, aim and then attack to leap onto enemies up to 50 meters away. I wouldn't waste a mod slot on that, but I mean, maybe it's better than I'm giving it value for because I've never used it. But looking at it, I don't see a reason to bother with that, with how easy movement is in Warframe. And then there's Enraged. Damage increased by 200%, critical chance increased by 200%, but Hysteria only lasts for 15 seconds and receives a matching cooldown. I want to get my hands on it to play around with it because if both are affected by duration, that kind of sucks. However, if the duration of the ability lasts for 15 seconds and the cooldown is affected by efficiency, honestly, I feel like that might be a good way to go about it. The only thing that sucks, though, is the fact that, you know, you can't just go invulnerable for as long as you want with Valkyr, which is admittedly a major draw for newer players. But honestly, I do want to play around with this. I think it could be a good augment. As for my build, I run Steel Charge instead of Corrosive Projection for that melee damage buff for her 4th ability. I run Strength and Duration, and that's pretty much it. I mean, you don't really need range on Valkyr. Granted, Warcry is nice to have range on, but frankly, with how the rest of her kit works, I wouldn't bother too much. But duration is freaking vital because of how Hysteria rips through your energy. And I have a little bit of negative efficiency, but in fairness, I did that to get the strength. Granted, once I get some Archon shards, I will use them on duration to help with the, you know, making up for the lack of efficiency. She doesn't need any health or armor shards, to be honest. I mean, for fuck's sake, with Steel Fiber, she has over 1400 armor. I mean, I really can't think of a reason to need more than that. Because, especially considering with Hysteria, she goes invulnerable. Because even at, like, max enemies, if you're going down, you're doing something wrong with Valkyr. How does this frame fare for Deviri? Well, she's actually pretty damn good, which, to be fair, is not all that surprising. She was one of the first frames I used for Steel Path because of her invincibility, but the main reason why I bring that up is because that does translate into how she works for Deviri. For regular Deviri, as usual, she's good. Again, I don't think there's a single frame that sucks for regular Deviri stuff. However, for Steel Path content, it's a different story. She's actually pretty good for that. She's one of the ones that I would say could last the longest. I haven't gotten every single frame in Steel Path, so I'm not 100% sure when it comes to Deviri, but she's definitely the one she's the one I've gotten the second farthest. If you're curious, the one I got the farthest was Wisp, and that was me and my uncle playing. I had Wisp, he got his Nidus, so we were basically unkillable. Valkyr's in a bit of a weird spot. She's not particularly good for anything, but she's also not particularly bad for anything either. She's a jack of all trades, but missing range. I've heard a lot of people saying that she's one of the worst frames in the game just because of the lack of range, which, if you ask me, is totally fair to say. I personally disagree, but I understand where you're coming from in that regard. She's definitely not a favorite of mine by any stretch of the imagination. Like I said, I kind of go through phases of playing with her and, you know, phases of just forgetting that she exists entirely. Which is, at least in my case, very telling. Because I use most frames regularly. There are a few that I just don't use. I mean, hell, we all have ones that we absolutely despise. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to make of her. She's tanky and she does a fuck ton of damage, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. She's good for Steel Path if you're looking for easy frame to get. That does pretty well with that. Like, when people ask for frames for Steel Path that they can get in like a day, I always point them to Rhino and Valkyr. Because Rhino is also pretty easy to get because all you have to do is run the boss on Venus. And there you go. Whereas Valkyr, all you have to do is beat the shit out of Valid, which, I mean, if you're not doing that on a daily basis, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Jokes aside, she is really easy to obtain, and even her regular form's pretty damn tanky. And, of course, the invincibility from Hysteria. But anyways, that being said, that'll be it. Thank you all for watching, and have a good day.